Hi, this is Stephen Froome. We're talking about the scaffolding. We're trying to scaffold it ourselves. We're trying to lay it out for you in podcasts, and we're keeping them brief, under 10 minutes, so you can listen to them on the way to work, so you can think about them and play with them, and maybe even give us some feedback. If you would, I'd appreciate that. We just talked about the elemental phase a little bit. There are 4 phases that are driven by love's origin, which is the falling in love component, the beginning, the wedding, all the party, and all that good stuff. Then there's the elemental phase, maybe 10 to 12 years, and then there's the transitional phase, the time of questioning. There is in Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament, there's a time for laughter and a time for crying. There's a time for there's a time for this and a time for that. This is a time for questioning. I want you to get that idea, because we tend to negativize it. We tend to negativize the question. If I say, well, my wife doesn't touch me, or she doesn't seem interested in me the way she once was. Well, that quite probably is true. I mean, she's had a couple of babies, and she's 45 now, not 25, and she has other things on her mind, and it's not all about me, and the narcissism in our relationship has seeped away, and what do we do now? So, the questions are actually a holy time. And the questions really depend on stuff we've been raised with, images, vision that we've had about what our life could be. And when we got into love's origin, we had a lot of that conversation, dreaming, visioning, imagining. What will we do together? How will our life look? Where will we live? All of that. Lots of love songs written about it. So from elementary, you go to transitional, and from transitional, if you really do the work, you go into transformational. That's beautiful. I used the illustration in a recent podcast about the Wizard of Oz and how the wizard gave the heroes what they didn't know they needed, which was that the truth isn't out there in some book or some coach or some religion. The truth is within you. It's beautiful. That comes from every major teacher, whether it's Lao Tzu or Buddha or Jesus Christ. That comes from a long history of wisdom teaching. So there's a story, a great story by Plato 2,400 years ago. He talks about a cave and people who lived down in the earth, way down deep in the earth, and they had for generations lived there. They had never seen the sun. They had an underground river or stream or whatever, and they ate roots and whatever else can grow down there. But that was that. They knew how to do it. One day, a young man in that tribe wanders off. Doesn't know why. He's wandering, he's exploring, as young men will do. And he leaves his group of people, and he follows this particular tunnel or whatever it is, in this particular, and he gets tired, lays down and falls asleep, gets up the next morning, but how does he know it's morning? There's no sun. He's dark, and he keeps stumbling along. Does it for a long time or a short time, the story doesn't say. But one day, he sees a speck of light, which he has never seen before, and he walks and moves towards that speck of light. And as he walks towards it, that speck of light gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and he gets all the way to the mouth of the cave. And he's overwhelmed by the brightness of the light. He can't even go out. But he slowly adapts and adjusts, and he can feel the breeze on his cheeks. He's never felt the breeze. And he goes out of the cave, and it's starting to rain, and he can feel rain. And he looks up, and he can taste rain. And he goes, oh, what is this? This is so beautiful, wonderful. And as he walks, he sees a tree that has various kinds of fruit. And he picks some of the fruit and tastes it, and he's never tasted anything fresh. And on, the metaphor is developed. He's out there in the world smelling, 5 senses, right? Hearing, sounds, birds, touching, tasting. He's in a whole new world. Wow. And he gets lost in it, and he's totally delighted. He even laughs one day. He doesn't know why he's laughing. But one morning he wakes up and he thinks of his people. He says, I got to go back and tell my people. This is amazing. And so he goes back looking for the entrance to the cave. He has trouble finding it. And after a long time or a short time, he finds the entrance of the cave and he goes in, and his eyes have to slowly adjust to the darkness. Then he goes back to stumbling and da-da-da-da. And the long story short, he finally finds his way back to his people. And they're doing what they've always done, in the way they've always done it. And he says, you have got to come with me. You have got to see what I've seen, smell what I've smelled, taste what I've tasted. You have got to, this is an amazing thing. They say, no, you hallucinated. That's not true. And he says, no, I tasted this fruit. I felt the rain on my face. No, you just had a bad dream. So they can't receive what he brings back. Common element in stories about the hero sees something or experiences something, brings it back to his tribe, and they reject him. Actually, those words come from the New Testament. Jesus said, I bring you new life. They say, I want to kill you. I want to crucify you. We don't want what you bring us. So there is in this evolution from elementary to transitional to transformational, there's within that the call to adventure. And the call to adventure is just that. It's taking those questions seriously. Who am I? What's going on in our life? What do you think of me? What do I think of you? How do I want to be intimate with you? Not like when we were 18, but now in our mid-40s, how do we describe our intimate connection? How do we deepen it? Do we want to deepen it? What's going on here? How did my parents' marriage do this? How did your parents' marriage do this? Freud had a little joke, Freud, he said, when two people marry, 6 people get into bed. He met your parents and my parents. Well, that tends to level out and depress the intimate energy that wants to be born, that goes all the way back to the origin of love. That intimate energy we carry day by day, it's called passion. We sometimes attach it to the wrong thing, like getting rich, or we attach it to the wrong thing, like some kind of garden project, or we attach it to an imagined lover. But that energy is about our partnering and really opening up the possibilities. When I married her, when I chose her, that was all there, but it hadn't been really worked on and opened up. So I'm going to argue, and we're going to end this podcast here, I'm going to argue that unless you're able to go from transitional and the holiness of the questions to transformational to the who am I really, you're going to have a senile relationship. Not medical senility, but a kind of relationship where you sit in a restaurant on Friday night and look out the window. You don't have anything really to talk about. I had a client the other day, and she came in and she said, kind of lightly, Stephen, I don't really have anything to talk about today. I thought of canceling. And I said, that's too bad. And she said, what? I said, you're a much more imaginative woman than that, and you have reduced it to having an issue to talk about or not? Well, that's not what we're about. We're about exploration. We're about the call to adventure. And the call to adventure is there for all of us. It's right in the hero's journey. Literature, if you want to read about it, if you want to read Joseph Campbell, he talks about it in The Hero with 1,000 Faces. If you want to talk about any major figure in mythology or in history, there's a call to adventure in there somewhere. And that's what we're doing when we're going from ordinary relating, ordinary world, into extraordinary. And the extraordinary is the realization of the new birth in the relationship between two people. Stephen Frew will talk about this some more. Thank you.